Hey, Flowmies, it's time for another edition of the ITF Flowcast. This week, I get to interview a friend of mine, Bekki Harper. She is the owner of Bekki Harper Financial. And the reason why I wanted to talk with her is because as window cleaners, we continually have issues with being afraid of our finances and not planning, not knowing how to deal with our money. We can make the money, but then it's the matter is being smart with it, and that's really why I wanted to bring Bekki in. She really goes into detail about different things that we can keep in mind when it comes to how we deal with it. What do we do about planning for the future? What about saving? What about budgets? What's the best ways to save if we're gonna save for the future? All of these things are discussed, and really, if you are especially if you're have several employees or you have a larger company, but even those of us who are single owner operators, you need to listen to this podcast because it has some really great advice of how not to burn through money. Because when you're a single owner operator, I mean, it's so easy to do that. And so listen in, you're going to get some good advice. It's going to help you to be smarter with the money that you earn and ensure the long-term health of your company. So without further ado, let's introduce Bekki Harper. Hey, Flowmies, it's Gabe from Gabe Spotless Window Cleaning, and this is the ITF Flowcast. We are so happy to have Bekki Harper here, and she is are you a CEO or what's your official title with Bekki Harper
You know
Financial?
what? You know what I say? I'm a glorified insurance agent, and
Okay.
as we'll get into it, I know that I'm a lot like you in the fact that I didn't go to school to get a degree. I just a lot of what I know is self-taught or
That's awesome.
mentors.
Excellent, excellent. And I'm really excited to have you on here because, like I had mentioned when I was offering to interview you, window cleaning is one of those fields where it attracts a lot of independent people, and so it's very easy to start up a business. It's very easy to get the equipment and even get the business, get the customers coming in. The problems come is when we actually get the money, and what do we do with the money, and how do we spend it smart, in a smart way, in an efficient way? How do we keep track of it? What things are we supposed to be looking for? These are all things that I think most window cleaners are not equipped to handle. And what most of us do is just bury our heads in the sand, and then we just keep going. As long as we're not shutting down and nothing and the lights are still on, we just keep pushing forward. And so I really wanted to talk with you and just get some insight and on just some smart things. Obviously, you don't specialize in business, the business side of it. You're more you specialize with the personal finances of individuals. But because window cleaners are usually kind of a single owner operator businesses, we are kind of, a lot of them are sole proprietors. A lot of their
Right.
business money intermingles with their personal money. So your advice is going to be really helpful for a lot of us who feel like, oh, we're too small to even worry about investing or worry about retirement or those types of things. So I'm looking forward to getting your insights. But first, could you just fill us in on how you got into kind of your business and financial advising? And because you didn't start off that, you started off, I think you said you were a hairdresser, right?
That's right. That's right. And so I can really relate to your industry and your business and the sole proprietor piece. Because I have found myself not necessarily by design or by intention, but I've just found myself that I find myself in those areas where I don't work for someone. I am generating my own income, and I found that to be true as a hairdresser. You
Mhm.
can be in a salon. I think there are some where you can get a base salary or something like that, but you're really building that clientele on
Right.
yourself and your art and your design. It's like, well, how do you do hair?
Mhm.
That's how you're going to generate the income. So with window cleaning, it's people are buying you, your service, the job that you do, but it's something that you're not dictated by a corporation or a time clock or a 401k or any of those things. It's just if it is to be, it's up to me. So
Mhm.
I can kind of relate to that. And what brought me to the financial industry is that I was that sole proprietor. I did hair for over 25 years. And so I did not save any money. I did not invest any money. It's kind of a, cash in, cash out. It's like, well, I had a really good
Yep.
week. I can, buy that thing for the house that I want, or I can go on that trip that I want because now that I have extra. And then you have those slumps where, like for instance, in the hair industry, August is really slow. It's,
Hmm.
it's really hot. People are traveling. They're not getting their hair done as much. So you hit those slumps and then you realize, well, I didn't really plan for not having the cash flow that normally comes in.
Right.
Right. So, and we can address some of those things as we talk further. But I came to this industry because I realized that um, I was not in an industry that had a 401k, had a retirement plan, had
Mhm.
vacation, had insurance. You don't have any of those benefits when you work for yourself. And my husband and I wanted to. We were both in that boat. He actually was started out as a handyman and kind of grew into a small construction company, just
Hmm.
he and a couple of other guys. And so, none of us had the corporate business benefits. We didn't have vacation. We didn't have insurance. So we had to start trying to figure out those things on our own. And of course, you go to get an insurance for health, and they say, oh, it's only going to be $600 a month per person. And you get that sticker shock, like, what? I
Yeah.
can't afford that kind of thing. So we got in. I'm kind of telling you a long story, but I think it's all relative to what you guys deal with day in, day out. uh, my husband and I said, we don't really have anything to fall back on.
Hmm.
And so we decided that we were going to develop some rental income through
Okay.
real estate. So we said, hey, we'll flip some houses. We'll be able to cash out and buy some rentals. And then we'll have some passive income for those years where we're getting too old to work. And that was all fine and good until 07, 08.
Right. Then the housing crisis.
Right. So we kind of got the double whammy because 07, the housing market went down. So not only did we get landlocked into the real estate,
Ugh.
but my husband lost his business.
Oh no. Oh, that's
The
right, because he's in
construction.
construction.
Right. So the
Oh,
construction went down. And
double
then,
whammy.
yeah, then a year later, the stock market crashes, 8, and I lost a lot of business. People just
Mm.
weren't spending money to get their hair done the way they were in the
Hmm.
past. So I was looking for a way to recover, and I found some financial strategies that really worked for being able to grow your wealth at the same time you have some liquid cash to work with in the meantime. And that was a lifesaver for us. So I asked the gentleman that I was working with, I said, well, what do you have to do to bring this to people? And he says, get an insurance license. And so here we are almost 11 years later.
Awesome. Well, I mean, I know because way I met Bekki is we're in a little networking group called SAP, the Southern Arizona Preferred Professionals, and we get to do little presentations once in a while, and Becky's done a few that I've got to hear, and she's got some pretty amazing stories. So hopefully we can sprinkle some of those in this interview. But there were some specific scenarios that I wanted to talk with you about because, you know, and because I'm in the same spot, and so when I say these things, I don't want it to sound like I'm saying, oh, other window cleaners deal with this, because I'm dealing with this as well. And there's
Right.
certain situations where we get ourselves into, and it just seems much more comfortable to bury our head in the sand than it is to actually address them. And these are some of the topics that I think I wanted to ask you about and get your advice and get your, just kind of help us to figure out, hey, how can we pull ourselves out of this situation? And one of them has to do with retirement. And this is a topic that comes up a lot. Because we are small business owners, pretty much we are, and our job is a physical job, so we are on ladders, we're using poles, we're out there for 8 to 10 hours, sometimes even 12 hours a day if it's a busy season. In
Right.
Tucson, we're working where it's really, really hot. There's going to come a time where your body is just going to say, no more, I'm done. And if we stay small, then we pretty much have two choices. We can either try to sell our business and get some money from it, which most of us do not have contracts. So we're just selling a list. We're not selling, promised income. We're just selling the idea that, hey, I've got people who like to use me. They can use you now. It's no guarantees. So that means the value of that business is pretty low unless you have contracts. or two, you let it go and you just say, okay, I'm done doing windows, and you've got kind of nothing to show for it. So the question is, as a small business owner, yeah, I don't have any money set aside. Is it too late for me to start saving? So what advice would you give to a small business owner in that situation?
Well, and I say, you say, if you want shade, when's the best time to plant a tree?
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't say it's today, it's 20 years ago. Right? you want
Exactly.
you want this great mature tree that gives a lot of shade, but the next best time really is today, because if you don't plant the tree today, you're not going to have shade in 3 years, 5 years, 8 years. And I'm one of those people, again, I can speak from experience, because
Mm-hmm.
my husband and I never saved our first retirement dollar until we were 46 years old. So, some people that have started planning, very early on, they're actually thinking about where they're going to retire, and are they going to retire early, and things like that. And, 40s and 50s, you start getting those letters in the mail, let us help you flesh out the last tail of your retirement plan. Well, that was the very beginning of our retirement plan.
Mm-hmm.
So it comes back to just common denominator philosophies that you'll hear from Dave Ramsey, Susie Orman, even biblical principle that says that you tithe and you give, but you also pay yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So that subject of pay yourself first, if you wait until the end of the month and say, well, let me see how much I've got left over, I'll stick a little bit away. um, it generally doesn't happen. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to really put that priority in there and put yourself first, and say, I'm going to put this money away right off the top, regardless of the other things that are going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand sometimes if you've got bills, and those due dates are coming, you need to make those your priority, obviously. But like I said, if you wait till the end of the month to see if there's anything left, it's not going to happen. So
Mm-hmm.
that's where you want to start saying, I'm going to put myself first. I'm going to stick this money away. And especially if you do have an emergency come up, that's a bucket that you can tap if need be. So I'd
Sure.
say it's never too late. It's
Sure.
never too late
Yeah,
to get
there's
started.
a book that's popular in our industry called Profit First. And some of those principles are in that book, as far as you pay yourself first. And yeah, it's going to hurt because that means that
Right.
you're running your business on significantly less amount of money than you're used to. But then what it does is it forces you to make those difficult choices, and what ends up happening is you end up spending less money on those things you thought were important or thought were needed, but you find out you can actually continue running your business without them, so they're really not needed. And in the meantime, you're paying yourself, so you're getting that money. And and there's different ways, it breaks it down. It's kind of cool. It kind of gives you little formulas that you can use. But even if you don't, that whole concept of you're running your business for the purpose of benefiting you. Make sure your business is paying you. Get your money first, then run the
Right.
business on what's left. Because I know for me, I mean, and I viewed anything that's extra, I viewed as, oh, this is an investment in my future because I'm putting it back into my business, not thinking that, well, yeah, but you need it for the now, not just for the future.
Right.
And you're when you save for yourself, it's a whole different type of saving than it is for when you save for your business. You're going to put that money to work in different things. So like one of the things it told me to do was to have a separate a bank account apart from your business account, so that when you and have the money
Absolutely.
transferred over, you don't see that. Because if it's in the same bank, when you're doing that online banking, you still see that money every day. And it's very
Right.
tempting to say, oh, I'm just going to do a little transfer. I'm going to do this. When it's in a different bank, you don't, and you forget about it. That money keeps going into that account. And then when you actually need it, which is like what you said, an emergency or a big payment, then you're like, oh, wait a second, I've got that other account.
Right.
Now it's for the purpose it's supposed to, instead of, oh, I like that little bit of equipment that I think I need. I'm going to go just drop a little bit out of there and skim off the top. So I like that.
Well, and it's very wise to keep your business life and your personal life
Mhm.
separate.
Yeah.
That's something that I advocate, is that if you're in a DBA or sole prop or S corp, however you're operating,
Mhm.
uh, you want to keep those funds separate. It helps you when you do a profit and loss. And a lot, I know a lot of, I ran for years, never did a profit and loss, didn't know what a profit and loss
No,
statement
I didn't.
was.
I didn't for a long time.
And then I went to get a mortgage on a house, and they're like, well, what's your P&L? I was like, what?
Ian, what? Yeah.
What is that? And then you're trying to separate, grocery money from business expense. And so
Yep.
it just
Yep.
simplifies
And a
things.
lot of the owners kind of ran into that with the PPP,
Hmm.
because especially if you're a sole proprietor, now they did simplify the process as time went on, because they were
Hmm.
really trying to get the money into the small business owners' pocket. But the first PPP loans that went out, you had to specify, like you said, you had to have a P&L. You had to be able to say this money was used for this for business, this money was used for personal. You had to show your disbursements, and a lot of guys kind of got frustrated with it because their money was all intermingled, and it was hard to kind of sort through the little braids of where this money streams were going to justify the amount of money that you could get from the PPP loan. And so
Right.
it was kind of a good lesson, sad lesson, because some did miss out on those PPP loans because they couldn't justify that. But hopefully, it taught a lot of them to, hey, okay, from here on out, I'm going to make sure everything's a lot clearer. Because one of the smartest things I did, and it was advice that was given to me, I didn't listen to it for years, but was to put myself on salary. And I'm now an employee. I get the same amount whether we do great or whether we do poor. I'm the same amount goes into my account every single month. And that has just taken so much stress away from me as a business owner, from going, like you said, that mentality earlier of, oh, I've got money this week, I'm going to spend, and I'm going to, hey, we get to go out to eat sushi this week, and we get to do this, and then the next week we don't have as much, and then we're starving, and then that's when the bills come, and you don't have the money for it. So I thought that was really smart advice that I was given, that just, being stubborn or just kind of being used to the way things are, the status quo is very easy to keep.
Well, and
And
it helps you. It's very hard to budget. And I went through years and years of this. It's hard to budget when you're commission paid,
mhm,
and you don't know how fat it's going to be. You don't know how thin it's going to be. You don't know
sure.
what's going to, you have storms come in, and then people don't want their windows done
Mhm,
during monsoons in
yep.
Arizona that we get, things like that. Yeah. So I can totally relate. And, when the market went down, the real estate market went down, and we couldn't sell the houses that we couldn't sell them for what we owed on them. We couldn't rent them for what the mortgage payment was. Uh, and we
Mm,
were about $1,200 a month upside down from
ouch.
what our incomes were generating to what we owed. It's like, forget gasoline in your car and food in the refrigerator. So I know what those times are like, where you're just running around. My husband's saying, can I rake your rocks? Can I mow your lawn? And I'm saying, can I cut your hair?
Mhm,
Because there's no need to live under that kind of stress when you can
right.
say, hey, I'm just going to give myself a set paycheck, and
Yeah.
we're going to budget around that.
Yeah. So getting back to that original question, so you mentioned, hey, there's no time like the present to start saving for retirement. So now that naturally leads to the question, well, then how do I save? Is it just a matter of having a savings account and I just put money in there? What are some strategies that you have to try and make the most of that retirement money?
Well, and that's a very interesting question. And there's a lot of different ways of going about that. In my planning, it's always nice to not have all your eggs in one basket, and to have a lot of different baskets that do different things. But I've come to know, and this is how I came into the industry, is there's some financial products out there where $1 can do 6 or 7 different things simultaneously.
Hmm.
And what I've come to know is protection when you're an entrepreneur or sole proprietor or even a small business. Protection is really big, because if you take you out of the equation, how many days, weeks, months can your business run without you?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not even talking, the ultimate sacrifice of, oh geez, dad died at 35 or whatever like that. I'm saying that you fall off a ladder and you can't work. So, or now you've got hospital bills, things like that. So I've found strategies where you can have a product that it will give you money back when you need it. You've got that liquidity of having access to cash, but it can also work in ways that it can be a life insurance protection. It can be a disability protection, a chronic illness protection, all in one place.
Mm-hmm.
And people say, well, how can that how can that work? And at the same time, that money's not at risk, but it's doing a lot more than just sitting in a bank account. Right now our interest rates are so low, you're getting 0.01% when the inflation rate is at 3.
Right.
Well, your dollar's getting eaten up just by sitting there. So where can we put it to work where it can do a lot of jobs? So that's something that I'm an advocate of, that you have those cushions in a strategy that will protect you in times of need. So that's one place. It's also good to build up that cushion of having a couple of months cash flow in the bank.
Yeah. So I think you said 2 months, right? Is that kind of advice? Like
Yeah,
in
at the very least,
the
and
very
then
least.
going up from there.
Yeah.
I keep about 3 months
Okay.
very liquid, and then I have a lot of my emergency money is still in one of those strategies that I'm
Okay.
talking about.
Very good.
Yeah.
So when you mentioned strategy, these are kind of your tailored accounts, and they're kind of varied, right, as far as how they're being used. So give us an example of some different types that of accounts or funds or things that you might have that money in, just
Okay.
generally speaking.
And this is where in our industry we kind of we're the salmon swimming upstream.
Yeah.
It's a very well known chassis, if you will. It's used by the rich. It's kind of the secret of the rich. Uh, Tony Robbins talks about it in his book called Money. Uh, Anyone who's wealthy uses this chassis. But when we say it immediately, people are like, "What? No, I hear Dave Ramsey says that's not a good thing." We actually use a cash value life insurance contract
Okay.
as a
Yeah.
chassis,
Mm-hmm.
but they're very different. We're not doing this necessarily for just. It's like you don't have to die to get the benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody benefited from a life insurance contract. Their family did, but they didn't. So what we do is we actually build it in a way that the majority of the premiums or the contributions go into that or go into the cash pile.
Gotcha.
So that's where nobody can touch it. It's
Mm-hmm.
creditor protected, it's tax protected, it's very liquid, and you're still, you're growing your money. You're
Mm-hmm.
getting a return that's 5-6 times what it would be sitting in a bank.
Awesome. Very
So
cool.
that's kind of one of my signatures. But when I say I was 1,200 a month upside down, I'm saying, how am I ever going to fund one of these things? I mean, I don't have the money. I can't afford these premiums. And it took me 4 years to get there. But the first thing I did when I got to a place where I did have a little bit of extra, aside from just 5 or 10% to start paying myself first, is I said, boy, I'm going to get one of these, because I had credit card debt,
Mm-hmm.
to the moon. And I said, I'm going to work until I take my last breath here. But I
Mm-hmm.
was actually able to transfer that debt from creditors, and get it in, figuratively my own bank, where I own it, I control it, I pay for it when I want to, don't pay for it when I don't want to, and you're in control. The
Nice.
government can't get it, the creditors can't get it, etc.
Awesome. Well, that's good stuff. I'll put your information because you have licenses in different states, right? You're not just in Arizona.
That is correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
so I'm sure other people will have some questions for you. Maybe we'll be able to get some customers out of this podcast for you. But obviously, I don't expect you to share all of your secrets. But I think it's
Right.
important for us who are business owners who don't understand that part to kind of see, because it all seems kind of magic to us. We're used to, we
Right.
go, we work on a job, we get income from that job, and that's that, we understand that. So that, to, like you said, talking about life insurance policies and investing and doing all this, to us is just, it kind of doesn't make sense. And like what you said, using that $1 to do a whole bunch of different things, that's foreign to us. We don't, a lot of us don't really comprehend that. So I think it's just important to understand that, one, just to educate people that that type of investing is out there. It's available to us. We can take advantage of it. And like what you mentioned, you don't need to be super rich to benefit from that. But at the same
Right.
time, if you don't take advantage of it now, you're losing time in which that money can be used, can be working for you, instead of just sitting in a bank. Like you said, with the point, 2%, 0.02%, interest rate, or whatever it might be, in
Right.
actually doing something. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, very cool. So that gives us, so we can start retiring now, and there's tools available to us to make the most of that, and hopefully help us to catch up, even if we may be kind of late in the game as far as investing. So very good. Okay, so the second question I wanted to ask you about is regards budgeting. And honestly, budgeting has been very new to me. And it wasn't until I have my aunt who's a bookkeeper, and I was doing my books for years because I was just a sole proprietor. Once I incorporated, then I was like, okay, I need some help. And she really helped me budget wise with the business to kind of work and figure out where my guidelines are and these types of things. But if I'm a single owner operator, is having a budget really that important? Because the ins and outs of the expenses aren't a whole lot often. So sometimes it just seems like to us, it's just an extra work to actually make a budget, when it kind of works out in the wash anyways. We're still, like I mentioned earlier, our lights are still on, our trucks are paid for, maybe we even are very minimal, maybe we just have, so it's such a streamlined operation, we don't have employees, our vehicles paid for, we're not buying new equipment all the time, we have our customers that we're taking care of. Do we really need to have a budget? And if so, how does that help us as business owners?
I don't know about you, but that word budget, to me, A, it was a scary word,
Mm-hmm.
and B, it was a four-letter word to me.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Yep.
And most people that are in industries where they're doers, my husband, he'll grab a hammer and go fix
Mm-hmm.
something. He's not going to sit down and think about, well, what do I need at Home Depot, and
Mm-hmm.
how long is this going to take me, and what all those components that big businesses all figure out. It's like, well,
Yep.
gee, how much detergent do we use, how much water do we use, we don't put that kind of thought in there because we're doers. We want to just go do. We don't necessarily want to sit and think.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, just the word budget was horrifying to me, and I don't like to use that term now, even to this day. Uh, but when I'm working, I work a lot with women that are coming out of battered homes and things
Oh,
like
okay.
that. I
Mm-hmm.
teach financial literacy. We call it Money Matters. Some of these women, they've left a battered home situation and they just left with the clothes on their back, and they've got two kids and they're trying to start life over. I tell them, I say, do you want money to be a taskmaster, or do you want it to be a friend and a tool? And that's really the difference in knowing where your money's going and how much you're spending for what. It really puts you in control. So when you're just kind of, bumping along, you don't have a budget, you have money, you spend it, you don't have money, you don't, maybe you don't have any debt, you live that simplistic life. Um, it's very easy to do that, and it works for a lot of people. But you're kind of taking your budgeting to the next level
Mm.
where you really are in control. And I say to them also, rather than operating off of history, you're actually operating off of planning. If you sit down and think
Hold
about
on.
it,
We need to stitch that on a pillow. Say that again. We're instead of operating off of
history,
history, we're operating.
we're planning. We're in control.
I love that because I operated off of history for the majority of my business, and it was just experience, and that's how it was a gut feeling, and it was like, okay, now's the time to do this. Now's the time, and I love that. Okay, continue on.
Yeah. So, it's the master. It's the difference of being controlled by the money that comes in and out, or being in control. And that's something that you can take control of just by taking the bull by the horns and deciding, when we get extra money, what are we going to do with it? When we're lean, what reserves are we going to have? And it also kind of takes you to the next level of, okay, I want to go on this trip, or I want to bless my family, or I need new equipment. Then you could take it to the next level and say, well, how many more customers do I need to have in order for that to happen? So you can kind of, go with the end in mind. I need this much money for XYZ. What do I need to do, in the next few weeks, months, however long it takes to get there? And maybe it's just adding, one more job a month, or 3 more a week, or whatever it is, but it really puts you in control of knowing where you are and where you want to be and how you're going to get there.
I love that. I love that. Okay, so how do we get started then? So someone like, never done a budget, hated school, didn't really care for math. Like, where's the starting point of trying to help us to get a budget started?
Well, and that's where I actually have I have a little family budget sheet, and I call it my confidential questionnaire, and I'll be willing to share those with you, and you can share them with your group.
Awesome.
And I'm the advocate for, you don't have to have money to have a financial planner. A lot of people think, well, I don't make enough money to have a financial planner. No, that's how you get enough money, is you get someone to help you. And I'm also that advocate. It's like, you don't have to call me, just call someone. Get with someone that's a trusted person, or something, someone that's been referred to you, that can help you do those things. Because it's sitting down and saying, I don't want to have to ask my wife how much she spends on laundry detergent a month. But so you can start with just the big overview, and then get more detailed, as you get into it. And then it's another thing that as you start that process, and then you start thinking of more things and more things and more things, and you'll start with maybe a base budget. Here's my rent or my mortgage, and here's the average of my utilities over the year. And then you'll realize it's like, oh, I didn't think about having my carpets cleaned, or I didn't think about my clothing budget, and it will kind of evolve. And then you can really start having some fun with it.
Nice. Very good. Yeah, that'll be awesome. Yeah. So maybe if it's a link that I can put in the comments of this podcast, or if it's just a physical file, I can also, I'm fine sharing that as well, so we can do it. But yeah, I think that would be really helpful. I've already gone through, I'm almost done with it. I will get it to you soon, but I did appreciate how in depth it was, and it made me think about kind of things that you don't normally think about, that just kind of the money just goes and you're like, oh, wait a second, this actually turns into a significant amount over time,
Right.
And so excellent, very good. So what are some things we can learn once we have the budget down and we're looking at it? What does that help us? What does that teach us that will kind of change the way that we maybe use our money, or we spend in general?
Well, and I think that's going to be different for individuals. I think some of it you can realize, who's the saver in your house, who's the spender. Typically, there's you're one or the other. I tend to be the saver in my house, and my husband tends to be the spender. But he's not one of these, I'm going to go to the mall every other day. He will spend money on, he needs a new cord to charge his phone. there's things like that it's like, oh, I need a cord, I'm going to order a cord, not thinking about, where am I in my budget, do I have the money for that, things like that. So I think what that does is it brings a lot of awareness to the table and helps you to figure out how your relationship with money is.
Mm-hmm.
uh, I started out in life, I did not have good relationships with money. And so I had to teach myself that it really is a tool, and it's not a taskmaster.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
People that are in debt, that the money's the taskmaster because you've got
Yeah,
due dates coming up. And
absolutely.
did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did.
See if it.
The reason why I brought it up is because I learned a lot about budgeting through diet. I went through a few years ago, I lost about 40 pounds. And the way I lost it was having to keep a food diary. And I had a budget of calories that I was to take, that I had per day that I was supposed to stick to. And it was very eye-opening to me how many sneaky calories I was taking in, because you go through the day and you think, okay, lunch, or breakfast, lunch, dinner, I didn't count the little snack, when I'm in the line at the grocery store. Oh, there's a little candy bar. Oh, I'll just put the candy bar. Oh, that's 220 calories right there, you know. Or you go to Costco and there's, you're going hitting all the samples and
Right.
all of those. I mean, they come out. One time I was keeping track, and I mean, it was like 400 calories just in samples, because they're
Wow.
typically not healthy food. It's typically going to be the stuff that they're trying to push that are going to be more delicious than healthy.
Right.
And it was shocking to me, all the little areas in which I was taking in calories. Or like another, for instance, is having a bag of popcorn just sitting there, and it was the healthy popcorn, right? It was the one that's only 35 calories per cup. Well, how many cups are in a bag? And I'm just
Right.
sitting there driving, not even, just mindlessly eating, not even thinking about it. And before I know it, I've eaten, if not the whole bag, 3/4 of a bag.
Right.
And that's all calories I wasn't mentally incorporating. And then I was wondering why I was struggling to lose weight. And it wasn't until I put the food diary on my phone. I made myself document everything I ate, even if it was just a little teeny thing. I documented it. And that's what kind of helped me to finally get over the hump of weight loss, was understanding, oh, wait a second. I started viewing my weight as a credit card that had a high balance and it was high interest. And the only way I could pay it off is if I exerted more, I burned more calories than what I was taking in. And every time I burned, 400, 500 calories more than what I ate, I viewed that as, okay, I made a payment on that credit card debt that I had. And
Great
so,
analogy.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so that really kind of opened my eyes towards the actual budget of money, because I saw the results. And I think that's what was kind of shocking to me with my weight loss, was I was like, oh man, there is kind of a math to this. It's always, every time I've always tried diets, it's always been kind of this mystery. And, oh, you've got to find the magic diet that works. And if you just follow this diet, and it was like, wait, no, it's calories. You
Right.
just burn off more calories than you take in, and you're going to lose weight, and now the pace, or the speed in which you lose is going to be different for everybody.
Right.
And of course, there's other health issues like, thyroid and, issues and imbalances and things like that you're going to have to deal with. But generally speaking, for a normal, healthy human, if you just burn more calories than you eat, you're going to lose weight. And that math worked, so well with that situation. It kind of helped me to say, well, if this worked with food, why am I not using this mentality with my money? Why am I not keeping track, or at least mentally thinking about my spending, to help me to be smarter on that? And that really helped my business so much. And it helped me to stop making dumb and I mean, don't get me wrong, I still love a good equipment purchase. I still love to do that. But
Probably
I
like popcorn too.
like
But
popcorn. Exactly. I still like popcorn. I just buy them in individual bags now. So I know, this is 100-calorie bag of popcorn. And that's
right.
what I take with me. I don't take the full bag. I just take a little bag, and then that's what I eat. So anyhow,
I've
I
got a
just think,
great. Go
oh, go
ahead.
ahead. No, you go ahead.
I was going to say I've got a great story that relates to this topic. And
Mhm.
I had a young couple, that I had known, and they, they said, hey, we're expecting a baby, and they wanted to come sit down with me because they said, hey, we both work and we pretty much live paycheck to paycheck. We're not saving any money. Now, she's pregnant. We're going to add a life to the family. So she's going to be working less and, probably taking maternity leave, things like that. But they said, we don't have any idea how we're going to buy diapers and formula and baby
Mhm.
clothes and things like that, because, we're living to paycheck now. So we said, let's start with it. That same little budget form that I sent to you. And I said, let's sit down and figure this out. Well, the husband had a job where he was driving around town a lot. So he would pop into a Circle K and get a Monster drink.
Mhm.
And then, 2-3 hours later, he would pop into Circle K and get a Monster drink. And so we sat down and looked at it, and he was spending $500 a month on Monster drinks at Circle
Holy
K.
cow.
Now,
Wow.
he had no idea. She had no idea. They had no idea. So I said, now, obviously you like Monster drinks. So I don't know that we're going to change that habit. But we said, let's buy them by the case at
Yeah.
Costco
Right.
and carry a little cooler, and just stick
Yeah.
4 or 5 of them in there in the morning. And all of a sudden, they had money for diapers and formula, and
Look
it's
at that.
it's the point is, it's the little things.
Yeah.
It's the pop into Starbucks here, it's the candy bar there,
Yep.
it's
Yeah.
those little things.
And
And
that's kind of an interesting blend of both worlds, because that's actually worked with me as well, because since I was on this diet and I was eating foods that were lower calorie, if you're out and about, there's really very few options for low calorie meals. It's all fast food. It's all
right,
stopping at Circle K. I mean, your best bet is going to a grocery store and hoping they have a somewhat healthy deli. That's kind of your only hope. So
right.
I was having to pack my food. So I was packing my meals, and I'm one of those grazers. So like I'll eat 4 or 5 meals in a day as opposed to just three, and
Hmm.
that they're smaller, but I will eat throughout the day. I usually eat on the way to a job, or I'll stop before a job if I'm early and just sit and eat something real quick and then go. I don't take like a half an hour for lunch. My packing my own lunch, I mean, it saved our household like $300 a month, and
Wow.
I just had no clue. And I didn't do that intending to save money. I did it because it was for health, it was to help me lose this weight. But the unexpected benefits was I was not eating fast food anymore. I was not going to restaurants and getting food for lunch. And just that little change, it saved us so much money. And but again, that's part of that budget, right? It's documenting that and making you aware of those expenses you really don't think about, and so you forget.
Right.
And a lot of times just making yourself aware can just help you out in the long run. So
And
all
we have
right.
so many neat little apps nowadays.
Mm,
You know,
yeah,
there's
absolutely.
there's all these little apps that you can say, hey, track, when you pop in to buy something here or there, and you can plug it into your app, and it'll say, this is how
Hmm.
much money you spent. And
Yep. Yep.
yeah.
Yep. Exactly. Very good. Well, that kind of leads us to our third question that I had for you. What are some of the biggest mistakes that people make when it comes to their personal finances? So just kind of the more obvious ones that just seems like you deal with over and over again with your clients.
Ah, biggest mistakes. I think one of the big ones is thinking that we're invincible. I see, especially having been in my industry for 11 years now, I see how fragile life really is.
Hmm.
And something can happen just, in the blink of an eye, and it changes your entire world. So, I know people that are tree trimmers, that are house
Hmm.
cleaners, that are window cleaners. And we really do all think that we're invincible. I'm
Hmm.
strong, I'm healthy, I'm going to keep going. Um, and it's kind of like buying insurance on the cell phone. Nobody wants to pay for insurance on a cell phone. They'll say, well, but then you drop your phone in the toilet and you don't have a phone. It's like, oh, if you don't have it, you're really in trouble. It's like, I got to come up with a bunch of money to buy a new phone. Or
Yep.
if you do have it, you're like, oh, I'm so glad I bought that, because now I can just call them up and say, hey, send me another
Yep.
phone. So I think that's true with people that are entrepreneurs or sole proprietors, is we just think that we're going to carry on forever.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the questions that I ask my clients is, I say, if you didn't come home last night and your family is wondering where you are and what's going on, I say, what do you want to happen? What do you want to happen? You don't want to have a financial catastrophe at the same time that you have an emotional catastrophe.
Man, that's really
Um,
strong. Yeah.
so, is your wife and kids going to have to sell the house and move because they can't afford the mortgage without you? Um, are the
Yeah.
kids going to be able to go to school at the colleges that they wanted to while you're still around to work? And that's a very powerful and a very, intense question.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is that right now you get to make those decisions and
Mm-hmm.
you get to decide
Yes.
what's going to happen.
Man, that's so important. I tell you what, we preach that a lot in ITF. As far as, look, you have the control now, so make the decisions while you have the
Right.
control. Because if you wait till you don't have control, guess what? You're not making the decision. Life is making the decision for you. you know and so man, that's so good. That's such a good bit of advice. Think ahead while you have the control. And I know that's part of the reason why I've worked. We have a saying in the window cleaning industry, that we want to get off the glass, meaning
Oh,
that
that's a good one.
we want to run our business, but we don't want to be the ones actually cleaning it. We want to be in, now everyone's got different views. Some of people just really love window cleaning. They're like, I'm never, if I can't actually clean the windows, I don't want my business, and that's their attitude on it. And I respect that. I get that. But at the same time, like, that was one of the questions I was asked in one of the IWCA conventions I went to. And the guy said, look, if you get injured, you fall off a ladder, and you can't work anymore, what happens to your business? Can it continue on while you're in the hospital? Or are you now not only going to have all these expensive hospital bills, you're going to have no income coming in to be able to pay for those hospital bills? So that was one of the impetus for me to start moving my business in that direction. As much as I love window cleaning, I also don't want, like you said, I don't want my family to be in a position of where, like, well, I guess we're going to try to sell the business while my husband's in the hospital, or I'm going to try and run this business that I had never done anything before.
Right.
And my wife had told me before, she's like, if something happens to you, I'm done with the business. I'm getting rid of it. I don't know what to do with it.
Right.
So we've already started trying to work in that direction where the business is now an asset instead of something that could actually harm us in the event I wasn't there. And already we've experimented by going on trips. And I'm like, we're going to go on this, if we're going to be gone for a week, I don't want to have nothing to do with this business. I want to see how it does. I want to see how it functions, and it's done really well. So that taught me a lot, someone who was used to having control and wanting the control,
Right.
that, part of the growth and the being able to have this business sustain us long term is being willing to relinquish some of that control and allow it to function as its own institution, as opposed to it being a part of me. And then if we can get to that point, now it's actually going to be an asset in those times if something were to happen that were serious.
Right.
So
And I
yeah.
can relate to the side of not wanting to build that team, not
Mhm.
wanting to, have crews and run crews and be the manager, different things like that, because of where I am in my career.
Mhm.
I like being the producer. I like meeting with the clients. I love what I do. And I'm also at a stage in life where, I don't want to hire people. I don't want to manage an office and things like
Mhm.
that. Um, so I had to really take a step back and say, well, Bekki, you're advising people to have these things in place and to do these things. But then I had to really have that reality check that I
Mm-hmm.
said, well, if something happens to you, what happens to your business? You know, because
Right.
I am the sole proprietor in my business.
Mm-hmm.
So I searched long and hard to partner with a, you know, we go through, I'm backing up to say, you know, we always go through what's called an IMO, or people that are independent like me. We go through a carrier that gets us to all the individual companies that we do business with.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you know, I need to be able to provide my clients with a name and a number that says, if you can't for any reason get a hold of me, here's who you can call. And it actually took me 3 years to find the right fit for that person.
Nice.
But you have to say, if I'm not there for my clients, who's going to be?
Right. It's almost like custody, right? It's almost like you're
Right.
you're
Yeah.
picking a godparent or something.
Right. Right.
But
You
that's
know, and
good. That
so,
shows you're responsible, and also
yeah,
shows that you're not, your clients are not just a source of income. They're actually, you view them as people, and you want to make sure that they're taken care of. I think
exactly.
that's beautiful, because that's one of the views we have in ITF as well. You know, one of the things, because there's a lot of window cleaning industry, you know, groups out there, but we are also very philanthropic, and we believe in helping others, and we believe in you know, we want to be smart business people, but we also want to be good business people, you know, as far as helping others. So we work to not view our customers as just, oh, this is a way for me to make money, but hey, am I delivering a service to be, you know, that you know, I can be proud of, that I'm earning this money that I'm gaining, you know. And so it's just neat to see, you know, that you're also running your business that way, that you're not just concerned with, hey, how much can I make off of these people, but hey, am I doing right by these people? And if the event happens that I can't do my job to assist them, are they cared for, you know? So, and that's good policy even for our family, you know, that if we're not able to be, and for our employees, you know, that if something happens to me, does that mean all of my guys are out of work? You know, or are they taken care of? You know,
Right.
can we help them to, can they continue on if something happens to me, and they can still provide for their families, you know? So yeah, it's a lot of
And
good
those are
stuff to
things
think
that
about.
they're not, it's one of those things, it's important, but it's not urgent. So it's easy to allow it to take the back burner
Sure.
and say, I'll get to that, I'll get to that, because it's important but not urgent. So
Hmm.
we tend
Hmm.
to take care of those things that are right in front of us.
Yeah.
And that's probably the difference when you're saying, you know, get off the glass or get away from
Hmm.
the glass.
Yeah.
You know, that's one of those things that fits in that framework
Yeah,
of being able
absolutely.
to provide for your clients in that way.
Awesome. Very good. All right. So that was a great answer there. So let's go on. Oh, let's see. Well, let's refresh ourselves on that. So since we had a lot of conversation, so the biggest mistake that people make when it comes to their personal finance, just to summarize, is that they're not making arrangements for what happens after they're no longer able to work, right? So they're not.
Well, yeah, we just think we're invincible,
We
and
think
then
we're
nothing ever,
invincible. That's
nothing
right.
will ever
Okay.
happen to us. Yeah.
Very good. Okay, so don't make the mistake, Flowmies. You're not invincible. Make preparations. Okay, number four, the fourth question I wanted to ask you. So, what options are available for saving if someone is afraid of, like, they don't want to invest in the stock market? They don't want to, you know, they're thinking, oh gosh, all these things I don't understand. I'm kind of uncomfortable just giving my money over to someone. Is there something that, if they're not, they're risk averse, but they still want to save and have better earnings than just putting it into a savings account? What are some options for individuals in that situation?
Right. Um, well, again, I'm kind of back to the life insurance chassis,
Hmm.
and that I did not plan on talking about. I'm not a person who starts with talking about a product.
Yeah.
Um, I like to go about it with discovery and asking those questions. You know, if you're not here to fulfill the plan, what do you want that plan to be? And then we choose the product that's going to best fit that. And one of the analogies that I have there is, you know, you could have two people going to Hawaii. One person wants to go and, lay on the beach and sunbathe, and another one wants to go, see, they want to go caving and snorkeling and rock climbing. Well, the one that wants to go rock climbing, I'm probably going to rent them a Jeep. But the one that wants to go cruise the beach, I'm probably going to rent them a convertible. Right. So that's where it really becomes very individual, because you kind of, and I'm thinking like three things at once. Another analogy we used was Apollo 13. You had all these guys on a spaceship, miles and miles and miles away from Earth, and they had to throw everything on the table in the conference room and say, this is what's on the ship. This is what we have to work with. And we've got to make that, that rocket, that spaceship, we've got to make it work with what we have here on the table. And that's kind of how I view the planning process, because we've got to see what resources we have available to us. And we also have to see, what do we want this money to do? And that's going to be different for everyone. So we kind of choose those products based on where we are and where we want to go and what resources we have to work with.
Interesting. Very good. What do you feel about products such as like annuities or CDs or things like that, bonds, US bonds?
Right. And when you're saying I'm very risk averse, that's where I always go back to, that cash value life insurance chassis, because of all the things that it will do. There is no risk there. There are guarantees with that. And yet you still have that use, that liquidity, that control of those dollars, and you can have them doing many, many jobs simultaneously. So it really gives you some leverage. And, we're going to kind of maybe go over our time a little bit here, but something that I feel is very important, and maybe I can ask you a question.
Sure.
Does our government need money to fund some of the programs that they have said that they would provide for the American people?
Yeah.
Right.
No, that's a good question. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think that's hard when it comes to something like that is anything going to get done? So, I mean, it's like, what's the bottom line, right? I mean, the bottom line is people need help. I know I personally benefited from the PPP as a business owner. So that was one in which things were able to get done pretty quickly. No, it wasn't perfect. It certainly wasn't. There was definitely some people who were left out, who didn't get to benefit that probably should have. And there was definitely a lot of people who should not have benefited from it and did, and that's just kind of the imperfection of putting a government program like that together so fast. But yeah, I mean, it seems like you would like to have some type of subsidized care for something so important, for sure.
Right. So the Social Security programs, the Medicare program. So do you think that are they going to get that money from, the 80% of Americans that are not paying taxes? Or are they going to get that from the Americans that are?
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to get it from the ones who are paying. Yep.
Right. And I just read an article the other day. I actually shared it at our SAP meeting today. It's called Americans Pay More Than $525,000 in taxes over their lifetime.
Wow.
And New Jersey, they actually pay 49.51% of their income, one of the highest in the nation.
In New Jersey, you said?
In New Jersey.
Wow.
Yeah, 50%. And surprisingly, Arizona is at 30%. So if you have I kind of did a little math on this. If you have a 250 day a year work days, and 30% of it is going to taxes, then 83 of those days are just production to give to the government.
So how do you get around that? Is that with payments that are pre-taxed payments?
Well, so that's what I'm saying is that, if I could show you a way to take that off the tax roll forever, and that the IRS doesn't even look at that money. It's like, when would you want to know about it? And when would you want to get started?
Right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because every day that you don't move on something like that, you're, like you said, you're just throwing money down. I mean, as business owners, we understand that all the time. We understand the idea of leaving money on the table. And if we've got something that we can do and we don't move on it, and either we lose out by either losing the job altogether, or we lose just by not getting that income right now and waiting till, having to have it delayed. We understand that. So like you said, that's kind of eye-opening to, hey, if this money is going to go anyways, wouldn't you rather go to a source that you can actually benefit from, as opposed to, like you said, it being dispersed to all of these other people that you're only going to see even a portion of that yourself that's going to benefit you.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
say,
that makes sense.
who do you want to get the money, the IRS or your family?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. That's pretty self-explanatory. Awesome. Well, is there any stories or kind of maybe lessons that you've had some of your clients learn, either for the good or for the bad, that we can benefit from, as far as some stories that you'd like to tell, just as either cautionary tales or happy endings, because of your assistance.
Um, I mean, there's quite a few happy endings, and then I can tell you one that's not such a happy ending. Real quick, I'll tell you, the bad story first. Um, I had a friend that I've known for years and years. My husband and her husband were in college together. That's how far back we go.
Mm,
And her husband was a primary breadwinner for the family, and he was in sales and worked a commission. And their only health insurance or life insurance was through his job.
mm,
And I had talked to them and I said, you know what, I've seen this, in my career, where someone gets sick, they go into short-term disability, that goes into long-term disability, and then maybe they're not able to work anymore. And what people don't realize is that, when they do have the insurance, the health and the life through the job, then that goes away.
yeah.
And I told them, I said, you really need to get some life insurance. Now, the health insurance, you can go on a COBRA plan and,
Right.
keep that going if you're not able to work. But the life insurance just plain goes away if you're no longer with that company. And so I told them, you really need to get some insurance that's not attached to that job. And they did not listen to me. And he was 52 years old and died of colon cancer.
Mm,
And that was about a year and a half ago. Very, close friend of mine. She still is constantly starting GoFundMe's and please help the widow. And two of her sons, moved back home to help her keep the house. And, they died. He died with no insurance.
mm,
And, all that time, it's like, oh, you don't want to have to say, oh, gee, I told you so. It's like I said, you don't want a financial catastrophe on the heels of an emotional one. And here
sure.
we are a year and a half later, and she's still struggling to stay in her home.
Mm,
So, those are the things that you can avoid. Now, the flip side of that coin, right, is that I have people that have started plans, and we've said, well, we need our money to do this, this, and this. I'm not going to get that specific because there's several of those that I can talk to you about, that it's doing what it said it would do. And the way I feel about insurance and financial advisors is, the big thing that you have is you have people like me to make sure that it does go the way that it was supposed to go,
mhm.
um, and that those plans play out the way that we anticipate that they will. And then I just thought of one other one. One of my first clients was my naturopath. I had a naturopath and his wife was his office manager, and they worked together. And I helped them retire. They actually left Tucson. He sold his practice and they moved to Port Angeles, Washington. And one of the things that they did not have coming in was the life insurance piece. And she was diagnosed with an illness that was incurable and fatal.
Mm,
And they were able to access the insurance ahead of time. They call that a terminal illness, where they'll actually give you a large portion of the life insurance payout before you die.
Mm.
So, they were able to take the family on a cruise. They were able to spend time with her. They were able to plan some things and do some things with that additional cash flow. And she did die. So it's the first time. It's like, when, as an advisor, and you're setting people up with this, that reality really hits home when
Yeah.
somebody actually does pass away.
Right.
And
Wow.
they say, boy, I'm sure glad you were there. We're the only ones that actually show up with a check. The
Yeah.
hospital wants money, the funeral
Yeah,
home wants money. Right.
for
we're,
sure.
we're
For
the
sure.
ones showing up to give you something, so that always
Yeah.
feels good.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, Bekki. We really appreciate it. And like I said, Flowmies, I'll put in the comments some information to reach out with to Bekki if you have questions. She is licensed in some states, and I know you mentioned before that if it's kind of worth it, you can go ahead and get a license in another state if you find out that there's a need there that
Right.
you can. So you're open to that if there's a need. But I know I've benefited from her advice and just talking to us in the group, and I'm going to be using her as well a lot more now that we've got this set up. But thanks for taking the time. Really good stuff. Definitely information that small business owners need to hear, and appreciate you taking the time.
Well, thanks for the privilege, and I consider it an honor that you asked me to be on your show.
Thanks so much. All right. Well, thank you, Flowmies. I hope you guys have a great rest of this week. Thank you for listening. And as always, flow on.